Chapter 6. From Legend and History Back to My Story. Our first duty was to send a telegram to Shoghi Effendi giving the time and date of our arrival, to which he replied, "Loving prayers surrounding you." From darkness, we are finally coming out into the light. Complete confusion reigned in the Unalaska Telegraph Office when in this isolated corner of the world we sent the first international wire and received a reply all the way from Israel. Upon our arrival, I was met on the dock by a local missionary with the question, "Are you a Christian gentleman?" To which I replied, "Oh yes, and a Mohammedan and Buddhist gentleman also." My remark upset this worthy person to no end, and he told the people that we had come to take Christ away and were not Christians. What is a Christian? I believe he is one who loves and adores the reality of Christ and strives with all his heart to follow Christ's teachings, which are the teachings of God. With complete love and tenderness, Baha'u'llah has brought us to the fountain of Christian teachings in adoration of that most blessed Spirit of God, Jesus Christ. I went several times to this missionary and pleaded that together we might show the harmony, love, and basic unity of the religion of God. He insisted that I was only intent upon his flock, which was, at the most, 3 or 4 persons. He finally let me understand that I was not welcome at his church, not even to pray with them. God knows that I made every effort to establish love, harmony, and unity between us, and receive in return the worst type of slander for my efforts. I suffered in silence and turned my heart and soul to God, the best of helpers. The missionary's life came to an end when he went out in his small boat one beautiful, calm, clear day, and his boat turned over and he drowned. This occurred after we had been in the Aleutians for 4 years. The slander and hate that bore upon us is even now impossible to describe. We did, however, find a house to rent and set about trying to make a permanent position for ourselves in the Aleutians. I obtained a job as a bouncer and garbage dumper at the local saloon, and Elaine washed the beer glasses. But I quit the job once when the missionary accused me of taking the job away from a poor native. Thus, we went into our first winter with the local mayor as our only friend, no work or prospects of any kind, no income, a house that was well ventilated, and through which the wind blew continually. I spent my days fishing, and my wife cared for the children, chopping driftwood for the stove, and doing the laundry as best she could by hand. Surprisingly, during this time, we were more gloriously happy than we dreamed possible, attaining a beautiful intimacy and companionship. In the evenings, when the babies were in bed, how hard we prayed together and how we learned the value and reality of true spiritual marriage. Let me share a secret with you of successful marriage. As my wife says, the greatest psychiatrist or marriage counselor is the prayer book. A great wisdom is one I discovered from Abdu'l-Baha. As we all know, according to the teachings of Baha'u'llah, when a mistake has been made, it must be rectified, so divorce is permitted. Abdu'l-Baha, in elucidating this, said that after a 1-year period of separation, if love is not reestablished, divorce is allowed. But God have mercy upon the one who is at fault. If an honest mistake has been made and 2 people are incompatible, then no one is at fault and neither will fear the malediction of God. Let's take a typical real-life situation. My wife is upset and clobbers me over the head with a frying pan, which upset me slightly, and I storm out of the house, slamming the door, which she locks behind me. Before I've gone a block from the house, the statement, "God have mercy upon the one who is at fault," hits my heart. I vow that if there is to be trouble in this marriage, it will not be my fault. So I turn back to the house. My wife has also had these same thoughts and has already unlocked the door. I ask you, how can anyone have problems in a marriage when both partners love and fear God completely and both go more than halfway in order to solve their problems? Praise and thanks be to God for the wisdom of Abdu'l-Baha. Ye say ye believe and not be tested? Or again, with fire we test the gold. If the gold did not go through the purification of the fire, the impurities would never be burned away, and the pure radiant gold of the human heart would never become manifest. The winter closed in that year, BE 109 to 110, 1954, with a fierceness that the 10 following years never equaled. I had built a small 12-foot skiff for securing seafood, but as the elemental forces of nature crashed and thundered, the boat was useless. By the end of our second month in the Aleutians, we had snow up to the eaves of the house. On hooks in the living room, I had hung an old rotten fish net, which I tore out. Between the living room and the kitchen, we hung a blanket to divert what heat our little wood stove produced into the kitchen for my wife and the babies. Such was the bitter cold blown into the living room by the unrelenting wind that within 15 minutes I would be forced to abandon my net sewing and retreat into the warmth of the kitchen to thaw out. In this manner my net was hung. During this period, we had written to the guardian, but not told him we were out of money and just about out of food, with absolutely no prospects of work. Yet in that unerring, divinely guided atmosphere, Shoghi Effendi was able to read through the lines of our correspondence and reach around the world, not only to us but to others from whom I have heard many stories, and pick us up, dust us off, sending us the encouragements and the guidance we so sorely needed. Such was the case at this time. We received a letter from Amatul-Baha signed by Shoghi Effendi, telling us we should accept help from the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States. After much deep soul-searching prayer, we wrote back, pleading that we not be allowed to take from a fund which we longed to give to. To us, this was unthinkable, and with hearts overflowing with love and gratitude, we begged that we might make this sacrifice as an everlasting example to our Baha'i family on the home front, that they might follow in our footsteps and forever wipe out that deficit which was continually clouding the glorious record of achievement. The subsistence problem moved swiftly to a climax. One day Elaine, who walks a spiritual path with practical feet, advised me that we were out of money, almost out of food, and that it would be impossible to last out the winter. We sat together that night in such a spirit of prayer and meditation that even remembering it today fills my soul with delight. Our decision was to begin the following day by going on rations. As the children had no say in the matter, we would feed them normally, but as for Elaine and me, our food would be rationed to make it last until spring. How can I describe the joy and happiness of that night? My soul sang, and my thoughts, as I dropped off to sleep, were that now, at last, I would be able to sacrifice something for my beloved. Even as I write this many years later, this desire to sacrifice has gone unfulfilled, and I can truly say it is impossible to sacrifice for the cause of God. By just making the effort, myriads of oceans are your recompense. I speak from experience and not just high on or idealistic words. So it was, as we slept, the storm died down, and after 3 long unrelenting months, we had a dead calm. I was awakened in the morning by a pounding on the door, and upon answering, I found the superintendent of Standard Oil Company from the adjacent island of Amaknak, better known as Dutch Harbor, standing there. He explained that the storm had taken out the power lines. He understood that I was an electrical engineer and asked if I would like a job fixing them. I immediately accepted, asked Elaine to put on breakfast, and so ended our starvation rations before they ever began. I have yet to go hungry for the cause of God. In all honesty, I had to explain to the superintendent that an electronics engineer who designed computer circuits was not a lineman. But I was sure I could do the job, which I did, even if at first I put the pole spurs on backwards, never having seen a pair before. One job led to another on Dutch Harbor. Finally it was spring, and I had worked digging a ditch completely across Amaknak Island to bury the power lines. Also in the spring, the fishing boats headed north, and it seemed as though every boat that came into our bay had something broken down that needed fixing. My fame as a repairman spread on the radio waves, and soon I had more work than I could possibly handle. That first autumn was our lowest spot on the economic ladder, and from then on it was upward. By far the greatest gift of all during those early months was the assurance from Amatul Baha that the spirit which animated us had made the guardian happy. For me, there was never been any greater achievement in my life, and praise be to God, the best of helpers, we had been obedient to the last will of Abdu'l-Baha, and had touched with a moment of happiness the great heart of Shoghi Effendi, whose radiant heartbeat was in harmony with the cause of God. When the victories came for his cause, he was happy, and when word of division, defeat, or negative actions of the believers reached him, he would become so unhappy that he would be unable to eat. My heart cries out to each Baha'i now and in the future, let us each and every one strive with all the diligence of our hearts and souls to really truly be Baha'is in every thought and action. Then not only will we never further stain the snow-white robe of the Blessed Perfection, but will fill with happiness and delight unique emblem of God, Shoghi Effendi, in the realm of glory that he now occupies. The other incident shows how our guardian always had his finger on the pulse of the world. We had, after prayer and consultation, decided upon an open proclamation to the 50 families who lived in our corner of the earth. No one besides my wife and myself was aware of this decision. Once more, out of the blue, came a letter from Shoghi Effendi saying, do not openly proclaim the message of God in this place. When you have confidence in them, they will confide in you. Then slowly confirm them in the cause of God. Oh, what praise and thanksgiving we send to God for his radiant gift to us of the wisdom of our guardian. My heart throbs with wonder and astonishment, for now looking back, I can honestly say that had we openly proclaimed his message at that time, we would have been driven from the island, and the door would have been closed for a long time. Yet, through the intervention and wisdom of our most beloved Shoghi Effendi, the door remained open, and through the years our roots went deep. The hate gave way to tolerance, tolerance gave way to acceptance, and finally all gave way to mutual love and respect. Even today, these Aleut people are very slowly being confirmed in the cause of God.